Last August, in East San Jose's Poco Way neighborhood, a young gang member was shot and killed, and when the police knocked on doors to find out what happened, neighbors readily helped out. That's according to Ernesto Perez, an organizer in the local immigrant community through his church, Our Lady of Guadalupe.
They answered the questions right away because the people know it's very important to catch these criminals.
Perez says that kind of collaboration between the community and the police is possible because of a policy that Santa Clara County adopted in fall 2011. It limited cooperation between local law enforcement agencies and federal immigration authorities.
Before this policy, the people closed the door to the police.
Many of the residents here are undocumented, Perez says, and they feared being deported. Now, the county is considering revising the policy, which it originally adopted in response to the federal Secure Communities program. Secure Communities created a channel for local law enforcement offices to pass on information about people who may be in the country without documentation, and then hold those people so that federal immigration authorities, known as ICE, can decide whether to put them in deportation proceedings. Other jurisdictions in California and across the country have passed or considered similar policies limiting participation in secure communities, but only one, Cook County in Illinois, has gone as far as Santa Clara.
It's very, very important for the Santa Clara policy to remain intact because it's the strongest policy in the country.
But it's the details in that space between Santa Clara County's policy and that of other jurisdictions that has District Attorney Jeffrey Rosen so concerned.
I asked the Public Safety and Justice Committee to recommend to the Board of Supervisors that the county change its policy and honor some ICE detainer requests. Currently, we're the only county in California, and I believe one of only 2 counties in the United States that doesn't honor any detainer request from Immigration and Customs Enforcement. None.
Rosen doesn't want to scrap the policy altogether. At a minimum, he wants to honor detainer requests for people convicted of serious or violent felonies.
What I think is quite reasonable is to allow the federal government 1 day or 2 days, it depends on which version of the policy you see, to merely interview a person by Immigration and Customs Enforcement. And I don't think that's an unreasonable request given the public safety interests at stake here. We've already had a case where somebody would have been held in custody, but the ICE detainer was not honored by our county, and then he went out and raped a woman.
In November, Rosen asked the county's Public Safety and Justice Committee to forward the matter to the full Board of Supervisors. Instead, the committee, led by then-Supervisor George Shirakawa, put the issue back to the county's public safety officers. That group met several times throughout the winter, but did not come to a consensus. Along with Rosen, County Sheriff Lori Smith supports honoring some detainer requests. She declined comment for this story. On the other side, Acting Public Defender Molly O'Neill says the county shouldn't consider people's immigration status when deciding whether to keep them in custody. The County Council plans to present a report from the discussions at a meeting on April 4th. Then the committee will have to decide whether to send the matter to the full Board of Supervisors. Complicating things, this month George Shirakawa resigned from the board after he was charged with perjury and misusing campaign funds. Shirakawa had been the policy's biggest advocate, and the district he represented is the most diverse in the county. The seat won't be filled until a special election in June.
I don't think it would be appropriate to bring it forward until the District 2 seat is filled.
Dave Cortese is one of the 4 remaining members of the board. He supports keeping the policy as is and says the federal government should take more responsibility.
What they're really saying is, look, we're not going to mandate that you hold this person because we're not even sure if they're documented or not. But we're asking you to do it. That'll give us a chance to investigate. You see the slippery slope there?
Jasmine Sukura works on policy issues for Siren, another immigrants' rights group in San Jose. She says the policy is about more than specific stories or figures.
It's been very beneficial to just make sure that to use that policy as an opportunity for us to organize within our communities and to let people know that our county is not interested in cooperating with the ISA.
That's particularly necessary, she says, since the U.S. deported more people in 2012 than in any prior year. But the district attorney says those fears are unfounded.
I mean, the idea that this is a policy that's going to result in large numbers of hardworking people being deported and families broken up is just fundamentally and absolutely false.
Rosen was the only district attorney in California to publicly support a statewide version of the policy called the Trust Act, which the California Assembly passed, but the governor ultimately vetoed.
The same groups that are saying they want the county to keep this particular policy are the same groups that 6 months ago were asking me to send a letter to the governor to sign the Trust Act, which would have counties honor ICE detainer requests for essentially serious and violent felonies. And so if that was something they wanted to happen statewide, why don't they want that to happen in Santa Clara County?
The Trust Act was set as a minimal standard for other jurisdictions, that this was, the minimal standard you had to abide by, but that counties like Santa Clara County could go further if they wanted to.
The county will likely make that decision for a second time later this year. Perez, the organizer at Our Lady of Guadalupe, says he hopes the federal government will ultimately resolve the country's immigration program and make the detainer policy a non-issue, although immigration policy watchers don't see secure communities going away anytime soon. For now, Perez says,
and we know the good people in this church and this community, it's not a target, but they are affected.
This is Rachel Estabrook with the Peninsula Press, a project of the Stanford Graduate Program in Journalism.